In 1799, a British scientist named George Shaw received a preserved specimen shipped from the newly colonized continent of Australia. He unwrapped it. He stared at it for what accounts suggest was a very long time. Then he picked up a pair of scissors and physically cut into the bill. He was convinced a taxidermist had sewn a duck's beak onto a beaver skin as a joke. He was wrong. Not only was the animal real, but the bill was the least strange thing about it. What Shaw was holding was a mammal that lays eggs, nurses its young through skin pores, hunts in complete sensory darkness using electric fields, carries venom in an ankle, spur that defeats morphine entirely, and glows blue-green under ultraviolet light for reasons science still cannot explain. This is not an evolutionary accident. It is a 166-million-year-old biological archive, quietly disappearing from the rivers of eastern Australia, while carrying molecules inside its body that may one day reshape how we treat one of the most widespread diseases on Earth. This is the platypus, and nothing about it is normal. Picture a dark, freshwater stream in southeastern Australia. It is night. A platypus enters the water, and within seconds, everything shuts off. The eyelids seal into grooves along the skull, the ears fold flat, the nostrils press closed. The animal is completely blind, completely deaf, and cannot smell a thing. It is navigating an active riverbed in total sensory blackout, and it still catches prey with surgical accuracy. Buried beneath the substrate, a shrimp twitches. That muscle contraction generates an electric field measuring around 20 microvolts per centimeter squared, a signal weaker than the static on a piece of paper. The platypus reads it anyway. The bill sweeps side to side across the riverbed floor, and 40,000 electroreceptors arranged across its surface fire in sequence. The animal does not see its prey. It feels the physics of its prey's existence and intercepts it. The electrostatic architecture of the bill has no equivalent in mammalian biology. Electroreceptors and mechanoreceptors sit side by side along the bill's surface, and certain cortical cells in the brain receive merged input from both simultaneously. The platypus does not simply detect electric fields. It experiences them as a form of touch. When researchers mapped the full receptor layout, the system was unlike anything catalogued across mammalian science. Comparisons with receptor systems in other mammals only confirmed how isolated this design is. The mechanoreceptive layer adds pressure, sensitivity across the water column. The electroreceptive layer processes field data precise enough to locate prey hiding under sediment the animal cannot see. This system has already inspired engineering. Northwestern University researchers built an underwater navigation sensor modeled directly on the platypus bill to solve orientation problems in murky water that conventional technology cannot handle. The platypus surfaces. It processes food stored in cheek pouches above the waterline because it cannot swallow below the surface. And to process that food, it has no teeth. Where the teeth once were, there are now hardened, keratinized grinding pads. Vestigial teeth are briefly visible in very young animals before they fall out, unused. Adults grind prey against those pads combined with gravel, picked up incidentally during foraging. The system regulates itself. The platypus also has no functional stomach. Food passes directly from the esophagus to the intestine with no acid digestion chamber. Why it lost the stomach is, as of today, unanswered. Before we go further, consider what this animal actually looks like. Seen head-on, it reads like a deliberate visual joke. Otter body, beaver tail, duck bill. Held in a human hand, the weight distribution feels wrong. It is smaller than most people expect, males reaching between 38 and 60 centimeters in length. The body parts examined in sequence read like a composite assembled from unrelated animals. The flattened tail is not decorative. Press into it and it gives like a storage organ, because that is exactly what it is, a fat reserve. The animal tucks nesting material beneath its tail while navigating the burrow system. The webbed feet fold back completely for digging and extend fully for swimming. Examined up close, the foot structure is considerably more complex than it appears at a distance. Early naturalist illustrations of the platypus head capture the era's confusion precisely. The sketches look uncertain, as though the artist could not fully commit to what they were drawing. The platypus is classified as a mammal because it has fur and nurses young with milk, but it lays eggs. It has a cloaca, one posterior opening that handles waste, reproduction, and egg delivery simultaneously. It has 10 sex chromosomes. It nurses through skin pores, not nipples. Its body temperature sits at around 32 degrees Celsius, lower than nearly every other mammal. The word mammal comes from the Latin word for breast. The platypus is a mammal without one. The order it belongs to, Monotremata, diverged from the mammalian lineage approximately 166 million years ago. That is before marsupials, before placental mammals, before the event that ended the dinosaurs. Placed in full evolutionary context, these traits are not errors. They are an earlier, preserved state of mammalian biology. Every feature that looks like a mistake is something every other mammal eventually evolved away from. The platypus did not get evolution wrong. It found a working solution and held it for 166 million years. Archival footage of the animal moving through its natural environment captures something about its movement that reads as slightly wrong for a mammal. That wrongness is not an illusion, it is age. If the design is stable enough to outlast 5 mass extinctions, what is the venom for? Only males produce venom. The crural gland sits in the upper thigh and connects by duct to a hollow spur approximately 12 millimeters long on the inner ankle. That spur lies flat against the leg at rest. Viewed under close examination, it looks almost cosmetic until you understand what it delivers. The process of extracting venom from a male during breeding season shows the crural gland at full capacity. Outside that window, the gland shrinks. The weapon is entirely seasonal, driven by androgen production. Males during breeding season can be observed scratching at the hind leg region, a behavior researchers link to the gland's activity cycle. Fights happen in water during the Australian winter breeding season, July through October. Males wrap their hind legs around rivals and press the spur directly into the rival's tissue. Brief, close contact. Research literature describes the mechanic as a knife fight. The loser retreats. Nobody dies. What the venom does to the loser is not minor. Defensin-like proteins trigger calcium influx in dorsal root ganglion nerve cells. Kallikreins activate nociceptors through kinase pathways. The result is pain that does not respond to morphine. Opioid receptor pathways are bypassed entirely. Hyperalgesia across the surrounding tissue can persist for days, in documented cases, for months. There is no effective painkiller for a platypus envenomation. The medical community has no satisfactory answer for a wound delivered by a small freshwater mammal in a river. But the venom carries something else, something that reframes this entire animal. It contains a variant of glucagon-like peptide 1, the hormone the human gut produces to regulate blood sugar and trigger insulin release. The platypus version is modified to resist rapid enzymatic breakdown, meaning it stays active in the body far longer than the human equivalent does. Researchers at Flinders University and Monash University published on this in 2016 and proposed it as a structural model for longer-lasting type 2 diabetes medication. The target of that research is the same mechanism as semaglutide, the same molecule behind Ozempic. One of the most commercially valuable drug developments of the past decade shares its mechanism with a hormone in the ankle spur of a platypus. The platypus evolved a more stable version of this molecule millions of years before pharmaceutical companies started spending billions to synthesize one in its own ankle for mating fights. In a river, a female platypus excavated from her sealed nesting burrows just before laying is doing something no other mammal does at that moment. She has sealed herself into a tunnel extending up to 30 meters into the riverbank. She lays between 1 and 3 leathery eggs, roughly 17 millimeters in diameter. She incubates them pressed against her abdomen with her tail for 6 to 10 days. This sealed period is managed entirely alone. The male left after mating. Puggles hatch blind and hairless. She secretes milk through skin pores. They lap it directly from her fur, not from a nipple, from damp skin for 3 to 4 months. The mating that produced them involved no extended pair bond and no ongoing role from the male. One female, one sealed burrow, everything alone. That milk contains the monotreme lactation protein, a molecule with a three-dimensional folding structure found nowhere else in biology. In laboratory conditions, it demonstrates antibacterial properties. Researchers at the Australian National University flagged this in 2010 as a potential scaffold for new antibiotic compounds against resistant bacteria. An animal that nurses young by sweating milk through skin pores may also be carrying a solution to one of medicine's most urgent crises. The 2008 Washington University genome confirmed the 10-chromosome sex system, 5X and 5Y in males, forming a chain during cell division rather than pairing the way human chromosomes do. Those chromosomes share structural homology with the Z chromosome of birds, not with human sex chromosomes. A 2021 assembly confirmed the chain evolved from a ring configuration. The platypus genome sits at an evolutionary midpoint between the chromosome architecture of birds and reptiles on one side and placental mammals on the other. It is a snapshot of a biological transition hundreds of millions of years old, still running in a living animal. And then there is the fur. In 2020, researchers at Northland College in Wisconsin shone ultraviolet light on a platypus specimen. It glowed blue-green across the ultraviolet range. No one had looked for this before. No one expected it. 4 years later, the function remains unknown. In 2026, a new study found the fur contains hollow, spherical melanosomes, a structure seen in bird feathers, found in no other mammal, not even the echidna. The platypus is glowing in the dark, and we do not know why. For more than 60,000 years before George Shaw reached for his scissors, Aboriginal Australians lived alongside this animal and understood its nature without needing to classify it. The Wiradjuri people called it Gayadari and held it as a totem creature, embodying duality and the refusal to belong to any single category. Dreamtime narratives from the Darling River describe the platypus as born from a duck taken by a water rat, an offspring that inherited features from both parents and chose to remain friends with all groups rather than join one. The Great Spirit honored that choice. Other nations hunted and ate the platypus where it was available. The Jabugai, the Yuin, and the Wadi Wadi people all included in the record of traditional diet. Archaeological evidence from pre-colonial Tasmanian sites spanning 40,000 to 12,000 years before the present shows platypus remains in midden sites, present but not a primary food source. The animal was consumed where it was available and revered where it was sacred. Two relationships with the same creature, both informed by millennia of direct familiarity. European scientists with physical specimens in hand spent 30 years arguing about whether it was real. The cultures that had coexisted with it for thousands of generations never needed to argue. Most platypus content stops at strange. What rarely gets covered is how this animal is actually dying. Not from poaching, not from black market trafficking, from wire mesh recreational fishing traps sold at hardware stores across Australia to catch freshwater crayfish. As the platypus navigates a confined passage in its waterway, it does what evolution built it to do. When it enters a yabby trap, the same instinct drives it forward. It dives in, it tangles in the mesh. It cannot surface. It drowns. The trap is legal. The death is unintentional. National legislation requiring platypus-safe designs does not yet exist. Some states have moved on this. Most have not. Then there is fire. The 2019 to 2020 bushfires destroyed habitat across major platypus catchments in Victoria and New South Wales. Post-fire ash runoff strips dissolved oxygen from waterways within 24 to 48 hours of rain on a burned catchment. The platypus's entire food supply can collapse in a single weather event. The platypus cannot relocate. It requires specific water quality, substrate, and flow conditions. When the food disappears, it starves in place. The conservation status reflects the trajectory plainly. IUCN near threatened, downlisted from least concern in 2016 as long-term population decline was confirmed. Regional extinctions have already occurred in parts of South Australia and portions of the Murray-Darling Basin. There are approximately 28 platypuses in captivity worldwide. Successful breeding at only 2 facilities in recorded history, primarily Healesville Sanctuary in Victoria. Every significant biological discovery about this animal was built on samples from a small number of individuals. If wild populations decline further, the knowledge locked inside this animal may become inaccessible before it is extracted. The UNSW Platypus Conservation Initiative in Sydney leads the active research. The Australian Platypus Conservancy conducts field monitoring and public education. WWF Australia funds river ecosystem programs. TERN provides long-term ecological monitoring data. These organizations run on grants and donations. The GLP-1 mechanism this animal refined in its ankle spur is the same target as a drug that generated over $13 billion in a single year. The platypus receives a fraction of that in conservation support compared to animals that photograph better. That is a choice, not a biological outcome. George Shaw cut into the bill because the animal made no sense to him. 2 centuries later, we have the genome, the GLP-1 data, the biofluorescence with no explanation attached to it, the hollow melanosomes that match bird feathers, the antibacterial milk protein, and the 10-chromosome sex system linked to birds, not humans. We are still reading this animal. We have barely started. Tonight, it moves through its river, eyes sealed, ears closed, the 2 small nostril openings barely clearing the surface to breathe, reading the electric fields of hidden things in the dark. It has done this for 166 million years. Somewhere in eastern Australia at this moment, one of them is drowning in a wire mesh trap that someone bought to catch crayfish. Shaw was wrong about the scissors. The animal was real. The question is whether we are going to be wrong again in the other direction by treating something this extraordinary as ordinary enough to lose. And if you want to dive deeper into the world's most bizarre creatures, hit subscribe. We're exploring the biological impossibilities that science is still trying to explain. And if you thought the platypus was strange, wait until you see what we're covering next.